And good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are. Welcome to Dreamy Dreamland. So, what is it? Here's a little news from NPR this morning. So I'll let it roll and then give my interpretation, running at the same time.
Full-time job it is to review records and decide what to be. Full-time job it is to review records and decide what to be released. So ultimately, I'm more worried about how it is we're going to keep our leaders accountable.
And so, I mean, I guess one of the issues might be that with so much stuff being classified, that it's hard to say when you say someone's caught with classified documents, the level of importance and significance of that. That's what I would imagine.
Absolutely right, Aisha. And, as an historian, I've looked at thousands of documents that are classified top secret. And I can tell you, not all of them are super interesting. There's an old joke about how a lot of secret intelligence is not actually secret, and what is secret is not always very intelligent.
Okay. Well, I mean, what about the president? What is the president doing with all this classification stuff? Is he rubber stamping it? Is he putting a rubber stamp on everything classified?
Well, presidents like secrets because it's virtually the only form of presidential power that's fully sovereign. They're basically accountable to no one. And so, yes, presidents hang on to these secrets, and they're very reluctant even to let other people classify information. But, once they create the secrecy systems, that secrecy has a power all its own. And these millions of other people can create secrets for their own reasons.
And so, as a historian, not a politician, what strikes you when you analyze the cases of President Biden and former President Trump?
Yeah, so a lot of the coverage has been about, whether they put our national security at risk. And the short answer is going to be, we don't know, right? But to me, the real scandal here, and this goes back decades, this isn't about any particular administration. It's the fact that public officials are basically stealing our property. When they refuse or fail to return records to the National Archives, they're taking our history, right? And so in this particular case, it's a little bit like, somebody moved out and they ended up taking some of your papers with them. And some of those papers could be really important. In the case of President Trump, he claimed that they were his property and we had no right to them. And he's been fighting ever since, refusing to give it back. Right? In the case of Biden, he's telling us it was a mistake. Now, that said, I'm a little troubled that one of the folders where they found these documents apparently was marked personal. It's far from personal. It's actually public property. It's your and my property.
So what can be done and how realistic are possible reforms in about 30 seconds we have left?
All the talk is about how we need new and better rules. What we really need is for Congress and the courts to step up and do their jobs. They're the only ones who can actually bring this system under control.
And so what type of things could they do? Like what type of laws?
They need the power of appropriations. Only 1% as much money is spent on releasing information to the public as they spend on keeping secrets. And the courts could finally overturn the precedent that prevents judges from even looking at classified information when citizens try to get it released from the public.
That's Matthew Connolly, professor of history at Columbia University. His book, The Declassification Engine, is out next month. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you, Aisha.
You're listening to NPR News.
The ETSU Chorale will perform a variety of musical styles at Johnson City's Muncie Memorial United Methodist Church on Sunday, January 15th at 3 p.m. Open to the public. Donations are gratefully accepted. More at ETSU Chorale on Facebook. Support for WETS comes from Krispy Kreme Donuts in Johnson City, featuring their new Biscoff Cookie Butter Donut Trio. Different combinations of Biscoff cookie butter and icing, cream cheese buttercream icing,
No, and that's a real quote. I mean, CEOs really are struggling with this challenge. And one CEO said to me, I never thought I'd be held hostage by a millennial. So that gives you
Some representatives, independent media, or the government. C-SPAN says it should be the eyes of the public. But others argue that media cameras tempt lawmakers to prioritize with losing a loved one. And what,
at least in a combination of different archetypes I had seen before. She is the kind of person, and I know a lot of these on these huge towers that vaporized when the bomb went off, and then people nearby
He's talking
can
about
taste
radiation.
the metal in their mouth. Sometimes the cattle would be burned because the fallout would come out
This one we
and
test
burn
in
sheep,
Nevada.
for example. And there are many, many reports of people nearby developing cancer who lived what's called downwind of the tests.
Downwind.
This is
Well, I could go on and on, but my real deal here today is here we are, 5 minutes 26 seconds. It was this Sunday, right? And I just went to church at 3 different churches, and I went to the Bible studies, not their ceremony, but
Oh, horrific. But what?
their Bible studies, right? And I was looking at, and I like going because it's called fellowship. And basically, what is fellowship? But we don't quote the Bible, we live it, you know? John Boy read John, that was interesting, he read himself there, and what John read was, you could interpret as the new edition there, right? It's like a boy band, right? And there's so many versions of the new edition, and so good morning, good evening, good afternoon, and welcome to Dreamy Dreamland with Sensei Al Bob.
Everything good back here?
Yes, you're the best.
Y'all need anything?
Boo, 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 boo. Let's see. And I love God and Jesus because I feel them. I let them into my heart. I let them, motivate me, right? And not as a terrestrial, transactional. If I do this, I'll get into heaven. No, if I do this, I'm in heaven. I'm already. This is heaven, right? And so, right now, I mean, I've had an amazing life, right? I mean, because I had no idea I was having an amazing life. I just was having it. I just served, loved co-creation without really realizing I was serving, loved co-creation. I had time, until I died a couple of times, and then I had, pretty, when you die, you get this life observation, and one thing you feel is God's unconditional love. I mean, there is when you feel that love, you realize that there is no real punishment that God is doing. God does not punish. Jesus is all forgiving. We punish ourselves, And John is a great example. I mean, people go, "Why do you have anything to do with that guy?" He said, he's treated you so bad. When we used to do shows, one reason why John stopped, he was like really torn because the only shows that ever went really wildly viral was the ones we did together, and people could tell him to shut up, so they could hear me. Then he's done everything he could to, he has never put links to my show, and he tells people, gives it a different address, in Dreamland, it's Dreamy Dreamland with Sensei Al Bob. If you're watching this, you know this. So anyway, this show I do for you guys, right? And thank you for everyone who sent me a gift. This season some people have, and I really, really appreciate it. And all those who haven't, go ahead, come on. You'd like it. You feel good. Send me something at my PayPal, the dudeawake42@gmail, dudeawake42@gmail. You want to talk to me, dudeawake42@gmail, dudeawake42@gmail, right? And so I had another, I didn't die in the last few weeks, but since Thanksgiving, I went to be with John for Thanksgiving with his family, and he wouldn't come. He was only 6 miles away up at school. He wouldn't come down to his parents' house. So I spent 4 days and 3 nights at their house, right? And then the Saturday after Thanksgiving, I think I arrived on Wednesday, or I might have arrived Tuesday afternoon. So say Tuesday night, Wednesday night, Thursday night, Okay, however many nights that is. And so, but it was really good because I was there at his parents' house and I experienced his family in total. And I can see where John's coming from, what manifested John's dynamic. But his parents aren't any worse than anybody else's. And most people's parents, they're not terrible. They don't beat their kids. They do everything they can to try and help them out. But they're not, no one teach people how to be parents. You gotta take driver's ed to get a driver's license. And you should do that for, it should be a license for children, having children. Not, any moron can have them. And I see all these tweakers have babies. I mean, when I was involved in the Rainbow Gathering, and I was involved in the Rainbow Family of Living Life for about 6 to 10 years, right? And there was about a 4-year period where I really, 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 I said, I'm being an anthropologist here at Cornell, and here I'm giving this opportunity to do a ethnography on, the Rainbow Family, and they really are diverse group of people, except they're all white. 20,000 of your best white friends get together in the National Forest and celebrate 4th of July, along with about 6 Chinese folk, or not even that, Asian folk, and 20 black or people of color. So, and it is so bourgeois, it's like unfreaking believable. But a good portion of that population is, and they see themselves as, what would you call, like how motorcycle gang or gangs view themselves, as liberated group of people, and not so much. So, I just kind of got, not. I went to this group of rainbow folk that were in Ithaca. And I showed up at the house, and the meeting had already started, and they were all screaming at each other. I didn't invite these people. I was on acid, blah, blah, blah. And all these folks were white, bourgeois. They had businesses, families, kids, mortgages, and they didn't want anyone to relate them to the Rainbow Family. Like, oh my God, drugs, sex, rock and roll. And so I walked in, I was listening, and one person stood up. I can sense, I put on the table that Al should facilitate this gathering, because they had invited the national gathering to come, right? And and it didn't quite happen that way. And because what happened was, they were, and a lot of these folk at the Rainbow Gathering are like deadheads, so they follow the dead. They're in the parking lot there, and so it's their religion, right? The dead was their religion. So 91 goes through Ithaca, and basically it was right on the path from Rainbow Gathering over here and the next dead concert over here. So maybe 40% of the population was gonna go to the gathering, was gonna come from the dead show and go right by there. So we had our gathering, and it was a regional gathering put on by NERF, New England Rainbow Family, right? And so and the titular head at that time was this guy named Larry, whatever his name is, Bobby, Kenny. Anyway, he thought he was a Native American, and Colonel Sanders was more American than this guy. But anyway, they basically voted me in to do it. So I said, fine, okay, good. And so there were three women that were in Ithaca. So that meeting was NERF people, not just Ithaca folk, but the NERF people said, yeah, okay, you do it. Because I had been around the rainbow scene since it started, Woodstock, right? I've been there. And my good buddy, GB, was, the titular godfather of the rainbow. Everyone, whenever there's a gathering, the news people go find GB, right? So anyway, and a whole bunch of other people, the people who were, like the guys who started Shanta Sina, the FBI of the Rainbow Gathering. So anyway, I accepted, and these three women who were really nice, really talented, loads of fun. I know them well, and that's one reason why I accepted, because they were going, please, please, please. And so I said, fine, we'll do this, but I have an idea what to do. Oh, good. And there was no one else who offered, except for these three women who lived in Ithaca. No one else offered any, no Rainbow folks, no nerd folks, nobody offered any assistance. So this was like, before Thanksgiving Council. So they wanted to do it around where we were. Well, New York State was never conquered by the white folks. They basically rented it and married into the the Iroquois Nation, right? So I had been working with the Iroquois Nation because the date of, so basically New York State was rented by the Dutch, right? And they said in perpetuity. And back in, 1889, the Supreme Court made in perpetuity used to mean forever, right? But they turned it into 100 years. So 89 was going to be the date when about 3/4 of New York State was going to go back to the Iroquois Nation. So that was never going to happen. So they were, negotiating. And so Grandfather David, who was the elder of the Iroquois Nation, he had to go to Syracuse like at least once a month and do legal stuff in this negotiation. And everyone else had life. Me, I was a itinerant scholar. So I told my boss this, and he said, "Okay, we can log you in as doing an ethnography on this whole thing about indigenous people's rights and et cetera, et cetera. You write something up that I can then copy and turn it into something I can publish. Go for it, right? We'll even pay you." So they gave me about every time I did this, they gave me $100. He handed me 5 20s, and I would take my boss's car and drive Grandfather David, because Grandfather David didn't have a car, to from Ithaca to Syracuse. So that's like a 2.5, 3 hour drive. We'd start really early. I'd sleep over at his house, and his wife and his kids, and his grandkids and his great grandkids, a lot of them lived there. And they had a great farm, and they had great food and great fellowship. And so anyway, and his son, his son was David Yarrow, right? And he was the chief. He was like the business chief of the Iroquois Nation at that time. And so anyway, I became part of the family, and was driving. But this is before Thanksgiving, and like at least once a month, if not 2 or 3 times, and we had a great time. He knew everybody everywhere, so we would stop off at people's places. We played drums. I had gone through a whole ceremony with Grandfather David in New Mexico. He was Navajo, and he was Hopi, but he lived in Navajo land in the Four Corners. It was very strange because he was the keeper of the Hopi prophecies, and a lot of them had to do with Mount Taylor, the snake goddess. So anyway, I had a lot of I had been around a lot of powwows, national powwows. When AIM was being started, I was, people, who's this white boy? And, Grandfather David would say, he's my godson, or he's my grandson, right? He would, because there were a lot of Indians that looked very white, So, especially the Iroquois Nation, because the Dutch just married into them. So anyway, I would go there and I was like driving Miss Daisy, and so I was telling, so this thing happened before. It was basically the Thanksgiving council, but it wasn't, and so because it was just NERF people, not anybody else, and there were no scouts, there were the usual suspects. So I basically said, okay, fine, great. You're going to hand it into my plate and run away because you think it's going to be a total fiasco? No problem. The biggest problem was they wanted to do it around Ithaca because it's really pretty. The Finger Lakes and all these rolling hills, and it's a really pretty place. And so, I told Grandfather David this, and he goes, there are no national forests in New York State because of what we're negotiating right now. And I said, I understand this. He goes, but the Iroquois Nation does have sacred lands that we, the nation, the Iroquois Nation, have total control of. The Forest Service can't say anything, the federal government can't say anything. It's about 2,000 acres, and most of it's farmland, and so the state and the federal government fine with all that. It's people in the family, and we farm it very nicely. We rotate, we don't do a lot of chemicals, blah, blah, blah. Because that whole area was a dairy farm area, so mostly grass, grains, and cows out on the field. So he takes me to this area that was beautiful because it had everything we kind of needed. It was a 300-acre parcel surrounded by about 1,000 acres on each side of again, the sacred site. And it was, interstate here, county road up into, farm road up into that neck of the woods. And it was right on the county between Ithaca and Watkins Glen, whatever counties, and Trumansburg. Anyway, so I go up there, and he goes, you can use this. And she goes, see this, we have 5 meadows here, each about 200 acres, and then a big forest, So you can use one for parking, one for your big meadow, one for camping by the forest and into the forest. There's plenty of wood in there. And I said, okay, this sounds great. So we, made a little pact, saying we could do this. And then I basically told the girls, this is what we're going to do. And so I took them out there, and I had a big truck, a big contractor's truck, like really old, Ford F-250, 1960 something, right? With all the boxes and stuff. And one of the farmers gave me that. I was the farmer electrician. I did a lot of electric work for farmers, especially milking guys. I had these big machines with like 500-600 cows, and they also had big chicken farms. I wired both those kind of farms, and they're both very heavy, very industrial. So it's got a lot of electric controls and stuff. Like birds. Like, why is eggs so expensive? Because we have. There was a bird flu that went through the egg community in the United States, and they killed like 3/4 of all the chickens. And they didn't even put the chickens, it's one thing to kill them, but they just threw in a big hole. They didn't like freeze them to, turn them into a product, So, most of the, what is going on in inflation in the United States at this moment is, first of all, the bill that JoJo passed was this, coming back from COVID, and that was like close to $20 trillion. Under the last 2 years of JoJo, the Federal Reserve had printed more money than all the money ever printed from Nixon to JoJo's time. That's like mind-boggling. You put that much money into circulation, of course you're going to have inflation. So that's what's going on, right? And the other thing is, JoJo had all this stuff in his garage along with his race car, and I had it locked. So bottom line is, this is setting JoJo up not to be president next time out. They want somebody else. Right? Very interesting that Donnie Trump and John did an amazing reclamation of Donnie Trump. He really, that Donnie Trump one with Praise Jesus was excellent. Like I said, he's very much like Jerry. How the French love Jerry Lewis as a great artist. Yeah, John is that. And if he would only play it to that, he would be unbelievably successful. But he doesn't. He wants to, I don't know what John wants. And neither does John, because, he constantly goes, and this again, this is stream of consciousness, but it's all connected because John is, I want my kids back. All he has to do is go to Texas and get a life there and be their father. Bingo. He doesn't have to get back with his ex, right? And the little girl is not his. Well, I take it. Come on. So, and all this is connected because you can see the dysfunction of one with the other, right? So, I, get this piece of property. The Iroquois Nation is give us, the Rainbow family, and I as a representative, just like diplomacy. And so the three girls, one of them comes from Trimsburg. One of them's father is like, a brother to the guy who's the county commissioner, right? So I go, good. I want to talk to him, the mayor of Trimsburg, the sheriff, and the highway patrol guy, and the banker guy, the guy who's got all the money. And so she goes, yeah, I know them all. So she makes a meeting in the sheriff's office, and which is in the building where the county commissioner are, and those three girls and I put my really nice corporate look suit, right? And I had really short hair and everything was trimmed, and I went in there looking like a banker, right? And so, and the girls, I said, I want you girls to really put the nicest flower child outfit you got, So they all did. So we all went in, and all those girls were, why I knew them was that, I was a straight up healer, and I was doing healing with, that's when I first met Chief Two Trees, right? He was a truly great First Peoples herbalist. So anyway, so those three girls and I go in and have this meeting, and we sit down and we do all the niceties, and I brought some nice cookies, and I asked you guys got a coffee machine? Why don't you make some tea and coffee? And here's some cookies. We'll put them on get a nice plate, nice tray. Let's make it look nice. And the guys were just kind of looking at us because they were expecting some, stumblebum hippie guys, and no, we were like, I was I guess I was almost 50 there, right? I was almost 50, not quite 50, 48, 49, right? So, I kind of, I said, so this is what, you thought that the Rainbow Gathering could not do anything in this state because there is no national forest. But here's this document, notarized and legal, from the Iroquois Nation stating that we can do an event there over this period of time. And they're like looking at it, and the lawyer guy is looking at it. And now I said, I don't want to step on anyone's toes here, but what I want to do, I said, you cannot tell us we can't do this. This is our First Amendment right. But I want to show respect to you. This is your community, not ours. We're coming in as guests. So I want you to tell us four, we're going to facilitate this. And this one girl, she's related to all of you. The other two are buddies, and you've known them for a few years, right? All three of these ladies teach at either Ithaca College or Roanoke, right? We are responsible folk. I'm a research analyst, for X, Y, and Z corporations, right? And I'm doing this as a ethnography on this type of people, so the political, economic dynamic who basically control you, go to your masters and they will say, hey, let Al do this. But to show respect to you guys, I want to have you tell us how you want it done. Logistically, transportation-wise, health-wise, everything that you would be responsible for, I want you to tell us what to do and how you want us to do it. And they were like, and so one of the girls goes up, Uncle Bob, you look really tense. And she starts massaging. So within 15 minutes of them eating all the cookies, we got all their shoes off, and I'm adjusting their chi and their this, and they're like starting to drool, like how you rub a dog's ear and the dog just kind of goes, We had all these guys, right? The banker even, right? And now we kind of cleaned them up and said, so where's a good place for lunch? So they took us out to lunch, and I said, Next lunch is on me. And Ithaca College had this, one of these, their tall buildings, had this amazing, because they had a school for hotels and dinings and fancy schmancy, unbelievable restaurant, right? And the people who ate there were all either, it was like a club. And one of my boss, who was big time in this entity, basically said, Al's a member. And so, and anything, he may not be able to afford it, but I'll pay whatever Al costs, right? So, the next time these guys met, I said, why don't we meet over at such and such? You belong to that? I said, oh yeah. That's how it's got this view of the whole valley, of all, not Watoga, Seneca Lake, two of the major lakes of the Finger Lakes. It has a great view and rolling hills. And so, they come to eat that. And we have a special dining room, the whole thing. And the girls are there and I'm there. And we have waited. We had a whole plan. They gave us a list of kind of things we should think about. And, this is like 2 weeks later, they show up and I have it all worked out, in a way that they would like, wow, yes. So, and I had a nice little package and I took pictures of everything, of all the roads and how to get in and you name it. And I had a friend who had a helicopter. He took me up and I took aerial, this is way before drones, took aerial photos. I mean, these guys were like, whoa, this guy has got it. So, the police chief of the city and his brother, who is the, colonel of the state highway patrol of that area, and there was another person who was the the fire and EMS, and he was part of the Forest Service, so he was a Forest Service rep, and they were like, okay, so they were my three contacts, right? And the banker guy, so I said, Mr. Banker guy, now you own everything in Johannesburg, right? And so you own those three stores that are right, when you come off of 91, you get on that county road, you own the three stores that will be right by going up into this gathering, right? Now you're worrying about people going to steal stuff. And I pulled out a special little package. I said, here is the demographics of all the people who come to a rainbow gathering and what kind of money they spend. And here are the products they need. I said, if you get all of this stuff, and if you, because you own a supermarket, you bring in the food on your truck into our distribution, our supply, you will make easily somewhere between $1 million and $2 million in 3 weeks. I had all of the numbers right there showing it. It was like, he never made that kind of money in 3 weeks on anything. Even, Watkins Glen racetrack was there, and they didn't make it like that. And so he was like, yeah. So, by February, we had all of the powers that be online and they were unbelievable. So, the guys who were logistically, the police and the fire guy and the dot guy and the Mr. Banking guy we had these meetings. Mr. Banking guy, one of his gas stations actually had quite a nice little restaurant that was right in line with the road that went up to the site, right? The site road. And that road was a kind of hunky dirt road. It was a farm road, right? And so the dot guy said, we have, we're supposed to, pave this and do that. We're going to do that before May. We're going to do it between now and May, right? And we're going to pave that road all the way up into whichever one of those, your main entrance, and wherever you decide to put your parking lot, we're gonna put culverts in, because it can rain, it can flood, and those, whatever one you pick to be your parking lot, we'll put culverts in and French drains. That's why I learned about French drains in a big way. And so they did, right? And they put, ton of stone in our parking lot. And so the dot guy left a backhoe with a front end and a pick, and meaning that big thing that picks up the round bales, but you can use it to pick up other stuff. And it had forks, and it had a big scoop, right? And backhoe, right? And so the thing that we were going to do for a welcome home and our meadow was right off the parking lot. And so we had this, the road, the paved road went into the parking lot. And then we had a big area where people could drop stuff off, and people who had handicap could get off and be helped. And we had our welcome home there, and then we had what was known as our Bliss Bunny camp, meaning people who never went to a gathering and didn't have any equipment whatsoever. We had a ton of stuff there, and that's where we put our showers and our there was never ever showers at Rainbow Gathering. We had 20 showers for boys and 20 showers for girls. We had it solar heated, and there was no water. The site, even though there was tons of water around, there was no potable water. Right, that was one of the. They had a pond, a nice big pond. Everyone goes swimming, but there was no. I tried to find springs. I did all that kind of stuff, but the guy, the moneyed guy, said, my brother owns this company that does bottled water, and we had these big tractor trailers of 20,000 gallons, and we bring water to the races, right? Because they don't have water either, right? So they have little gray water, but they don't have potable water, right? So we have these trucks that take it to them. We will bring that to you, and we will just charge you what it costs us, $20. And we will eat that price because I'm going to be making $1 million a weekend, right? That's what he thought. I'm going to be making, I'm going to be between 1 and 2. I'm going to make $1 million each weekend, right? He almost did. And so, so these guys, put probably $200,000 into this, but at some point they were going to have to do it anyway. We just gave them the excuse, right? So halfway before you even got into that area, but where it was paved, they made a really nice cleared space and paved that. And that's where the EMS guys were, and the fire guys were, and the highway patrol guys were, right? And they made a really nice little facility, which later became a tourist site, right? So, these were all kind of in their budget, so they just took, and that's what politicians do. They got money, they can do this, they can just put it over there and do that. So they did all of that, and so they gave me also a tractor with lawnmowers, and so the 100 acres that we decided, because it's the flattest, nicest, had all trees all the way around, so people could camp right there and have the main meadow there. We could stick 20,000, 100,000 people there. And we mowed it in February, and then the snows came, and then we mowed it again in March. And then between February and March, we seeded it with like the kind of grass seed you use for, golf courses. And by mid-March, it was really coming up good. We mowed it. And in March, we mowed it again. And then we made nice little flower things, and we put bushes and roses and like around Kitty Village, we kind of mapped out Kitty Village with all kinds of flowers. Welcome home, we built this big trellis, big, like, 20 feet high, 40 feet across, and had roses and all other kind of flowering bushes that would love crawling up things. And we spelled out welcome home in roses. It was amazing, right? And the path, which that big meadow, we drained really well. And the path that was, Main Street, we basically put a lot of constraints in, put a lot of stone on, then put grass. That's how I learned how to, grow lawns on top of stone, and basically it was a carpet. So no matter how many people walked on it, the lawn never. So we never had to, you know, mow it during the time because people were walking on it all the time. So it was unbelievable. So it was considered the best rainbow gathering ever. And basically, me and three girls put it on. Now, we each, I was at Cornell, so and Ithaca, so there were a bunch of kids. So I said, I'm going to do this event here, and got them. So we had our seed camp crew in March, and we, all of this work we did, and so we went into the woods. We cleared out the whole woods. We brought all the wood out. Where we thought kitchens were going to be. The guys who were going to bring that big water tank, and we had it so they could pull in behind the Bliss Bunny camp and leave, a 20,000 gallon, food grade stainless steel tanker there. And we had hose, black pipe that we just ran, to Kitty Village, to MASH, to kitchens, and places where people could get water, right? And so, and we had a number of the water guys also had the septic biz, and so we actually had porta johns, for people who couldn't do slit trenches, and so it was the most amazingly organized, and every kitchen we had wood waiting for them, dried wood covered in tarps, and a fire pit, and a couple, like loving ovens, and a few of the people who had big kitchens came. I was in contact with them, and they showed up like in seed camp time in June, right, and built their kitchens. And it was like, we have water, we have wood, we don't have to do any of that. Half of our time is collecting that, and so that was that gathering, right? And so I became the dude of the Rainbow Gathering for about 5 years. So the next one we did in Vermont, and that was a fiasco. But it was, it turned out it was miraculous. Is really what it was, and that's really what you have to realize in life is that you can either, whine and cry and go on about how terrible it is, which I could have done last week, going to John's parents' house and eating all their food, which was great. I mean, it reveled back to my Italian heritage, but I shouldn't have eaten it, but it was hard not to, right? Because it was all these cookies were everywhere, right? So what can I say? And so through my homeostasis, and it's taken me all this time to kind of get back to it. So I'm getting back to it. But I did a blood test when I came back. I did one before I left, and I did one when I came back, and they were so like whacked out. They would go, "Oh man, you was," so they wanted to do all kinds of things. I said, "No, you're not touching me with a knife. You got all these little devices that can look inside me, so I'll put up with that." So I did. It was, annoying because I knew more about it than they did, and I just had to like torment them until they did what I wanted them to do, which they never experienced. Just one, And the only reason it happened is because the people who ran, who were the technicians and the nurses, they gleefully loved the fact that I was making their superiors like, he's not listening to me, my authority, And I made everyone laugh, and so, and I'm not quite up to total snuff, but I'm getting there, and so, am I whining about it? No, I saw it as a good opportunity to delve into the medical system a little deeper, right? And have a little fun. And yeah, it was difficult. It was painful. It was uncomfortable. It was all of the above. But I just, and I, was the good patient, right? And that's why the doctors I have take care of me really well because I'm a good patient. I come to them knowing exactly what's going on, telling them what it is, getting their nurses to sign me up to get the right tests before they even see me so they don't have to waste the time. They can, when the first time they see me, they go, "Oh yeah, here's all the tests, this is what's going on, we can go from there," right? Now, if most people did that with our own healthcare, we'd be okay, but we don't. Right? It's all about making money. Anyway, let's see. That was a little stream of consciousness of the last few weeks since Thanksgiving and Christmas. And I really had an amazing, there's a Bible station that is, sometimes it's annoying because they are transactional about Jesus, but they do a pretty good, they buy programming from a couple of folk out there that tell stories like I do that really get your heart open to Jesus. It's really, so I had that, and Christmas time I read Dickens' Christmas Carol over and over and over again. And so one of those, it was the night before Christmas Eve, and it was really ridiculously cold. And, I could have really, and the Colonel Sanders, he left his tweakers. He went to Florida and locked his house up and said, "Oh, you can't stay there. You can stay in the woods, right?" And they'd be dead. I put them in my hippie wagon, right, because it has a wood stove. And it was sad. All white people, between the age of 30 and 50, and they were from middle income, and they basically, just did whatever the heck they wanted, and when they were young, that was okay, but when they started to get to 30 to 50, not so much. And so, and they were annoying because they wanted me to do everything, right? Well, we have no word for it. We go by us. I said, no, go in the forest. I said, well, Colonel Sanders has a big pile of wood. Take his big wagon and drag a bunch of that wood up here. Put it under the bus so it stays dry. Well, they didn't. They just left it in the big wagon. It rained and snowed and got all wet, froze. It all froze and they couldn't get it out. I said, well, go back down to his pile and grab a few, things. And again, keep it dry. Put it inside the bus. Chop it up so you can't put gigantic log in this little teeny weeny wood stove. I had to show him how to do it, just like John. John has two great wood stoves that would heat. Because when I had a place, that's how I didn't spend electricity on heating the place and didn't want to do that. I mean, I actually went to Florida every winter, but I just started a fire in a wood stove, right? And it heated the school up like fantastic, right? John went and bought this stuff. John actually bought these little cubes of stuff that you just put the cubes in there and you put a match to it. It's like, and you can't do that. It's too hard. It had so much ash. Why do you so much ash? John, you've had this wood stove for 8 years. It's not my ash. When you bought this thing, these things were all clean. Anyway, so, and that's the world we live in, pretty much. People aren't ready. They talk about Jesus all the time. They talk about God all the time. But you have to basically turn your life over to, and when you say turn your life, it's not like transactional. You take God's unconditional love and you put it in your heart, and your heart illuminates and shows it to other people. Why do you like these stories? Because God's unconditional love is in my heart. Jesus' unconditional forgiveness is in my head. You don't hear me going on, trolling anyone or going on about anyone. I go on about everyone, but not in a upset, angry, everyone goes, how can you be so patient? How can you not get upset? How can you? I have a new girlfriend. And the thing that she doesn't, that upsets her the most is that I don't get upset, right? And she keeps saying, well, you're just going to leave me. And I said, why? You're very, you're very attractive. You're very smart. You're not just a professor. You're an above a professor at this university. And, I understand what you study, and we have, amazing conversations. And you're sweet, and you're cute, and you're nice to cuddle. And your cats seem to like me. It shouldn't mean something, right? And she lives in this teeny weeny house. And so and I do everything I can to not upset her structure in her house. And so, and she can't, the man cave. And so, and she just came there once and said, and so, what we do is that we go to another town where, no, because that's the other thing. She don't want anybody to know that she's actually hanging out with somebody. So we go to another town where no one knows her, and we stay at a nice hotel, and that town has stuff that's entertaining, movies and dancing and music and all kinds of nice restaurants. And so we, she's got, she could afford it. So she comes and picks me up, and then we go out for a couple of days. Right? So that's my new love interest, and she goes, I don't see this going anywhere. I said, come on, I'm in my 70s. You're. I'm not going to say how old you are, but you really want to have kids. No, you don't. You don't want anything to upset your lifestyle. I'm the closest thing you're ever going to have to fun without asking any kind of changes out of you. Because I like you for who you are. I don't want you to change. You want to change? Sure. You don't want to change? Sure. So that's life, And what would John do? You have to only, wait to die to see your second wife. No, sorry. She wouldn't want me to do that anyway, So anyway, again, we're almost into this. Look at this, 51 minutes and hits 51 seconds. I'm getting out of here anytime soon. So I got things to do. Still sunny, getting warmer. So I will say, when it hits 51, au revoir. I love you all. Thank you for those who put something in the old PayPal. Remember PayPal, dudewake42@gmail. Want to get hold of me? dudewake42@gmail. Okay? There you go. Love you guys. See you next time. Maybe tomorrow, maybe sometime soon. I more money, better weather. I'll see. It's supposed to rain. I don't go around when it rains. And my neighbor's got people staying in his place until there's nobody there. It's one of the reasons why I was able to see you guys as much as I did. But right now, so, our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. As it was in the beginning, is now, ever shall be, world without end. Every day and every way, let us take the peace of the earth, your peace of the earth, and make it stronger. Now that one prayer is better than quoting anything out of the New Testament. Because the New Testament was written by advertising executives of the Holy Roman Empire. Yeah, go smoke on that one.